and thank you for joining us on the first edition of Journalist Hangout this week. I'm Ayodele Ozubaku. Today on the program, APC writes INEC demands fresh governorship election in Bayelsa states as Timothy Silva calls for calm over Supreme Court judgments, describes APC's loss as temporary. Gallant Nigerian soldiers from 195 Battalion Charlie Company foil Boko Haram's plan to enter Maiduguri through Muna general area. And later on the show, President Buhari, Governor Masari cautioned against reprisal attacks as bandits return to kill 30 in Basari local government area in Katsina State. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolabi Otitoju and Wale Adeoye. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us again. Now, the never say die spirit of an average Nigerian politician is legendary after the Supreme Court gave an order voiding the election of David Lyon as the governor of Bayelsa State. His party, the All Prgoressives Congress, APC, is not giving up. The party said it has written to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, demanding for a fresh governorship election in the states. Meanwhile, a chieftain of the party and Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, has called for calm. In a statement he personally signed, Silva also apologized to President Muhammadu Buhari for the loss, describing it as temporary. Babajide, let's go. What's the APC as a party, what they are asking for, and what the Supreme Court adjudicated on? The Supreme Court is saying that your governorship, your running mates did not, he had inconsistencies in filing his results, and as a result of that, the Supreme Court actually nullified his candidacy and that of his deputy. But the party is now saying we are going to court and we are taking INEC to court.
I've read the story and I looked at the point that the party has made, which is to the effect that the candidate of the PDP did not achieve the constitutionally required spread. 2, the APC statement also said that the Supreme Court did not order INEC to take away the votes scored by his by the party. But I'm confused because I don't know whether they didn't read the judgment of the Supreme Court or the party is just doing what amounts to brinksmanship, because the order of the Supreme Court, I've read it, paragraph 5 of the order, signed by the registrar, says clearly that it shall be deemed that the APC candidates did not take part in the election. So that is saying indirectly, or what is saying directly, not even indirectly, that their efforts in taking part in that election amounts in the face of the law to a futile, to a futile one. So if the Supreme Court says that it shall be deemed that they were not part of the election, you can't be talking about any vote anywhere. You can't be talking about any vote anywhere. When a candidate is disqualified, the votes that the candidate scored are taken away. At the end of the day, when votes are going to be tallied, they are going to leave out the votes that party scored. So, and that's what INEC has done. The issue of calling INEC to do a fresh election, INEC cannot decide to do a fresh election because the court did not order it to organize a fresh election. You know, decisions of courts are not based on sentiment. They are not based on emotions. This is a fact that we as Nigerians, we must admit. The courts did not tell INEC to organize a fresh election. If it wanted INEC to organize a fresh election, it should have spread it out. You see, the problem that we are having now has to do largely with the inconsistencies of the Supreme Court itself. If the Supreme Court will give decisions that are consistent and you can see parallels over a long period, and that consistency shows, people won't be saying the Supreme Court should reverse itself or to review its decisions. Because everyone has been talking about Faleke's matter. Clearly, the Supreme Court did not cover itself in glory in handling Faleke's matter. In those days when I was talking about this Faleke's matter, referring to some of the errors that were made, people were saying, oh, it's Faleke's relation. That is why he's saying all these things. Some people will even deliberately, when they want to provoke you, they'll draw attention to those things. But we are talking about whether justice was done or not. So, and if you look away when someone suffers injustice, you never can tell when it will come back to hurt you. Because even the APC is to blame. The people who made sure that Faleke never got there were members of the APC. It wasn't PDP. You know? So this is the thing. My own advice to the Supreme Court, because I know that it's extremely difficult for the Supreme Court to reverse itself. Look at even the case of Imo. It is clear in Section 285 of the Constitution that the Supreme Court cannot take a decision more than 60 days after the decision of the Court of Appeal had been made. So I won't be surprised if tomorrow the Supreme Court clearly says it has no jurisdiction to entertain Ihedioha's matter, because it is clearly now beyond 60 days within which that order of the Court of Appeal was made.
Really?
Yes. That is
a booby trap.
That is no, it's the law. That's what the law says. And many lawyers who have gone to court trying to get the Supreme Court to do something in similar matters have failed. Usman versus Abubakar. The Supreme Court even punished a lawyer, a famous lawyer from Kogi State, you know, with it awarded cost against that lawyer, the cost of 1 million naira, accusing the lawyer of wasting his time. Why? Because the 60 days grace had passed. So clearly, that 60 days grace that we are talking about has passed in the case of Ihedioha. And if we look at that as precedent, then I can predict what the Supreme Court will do on Tuesday.
Wale, why is it that our institutions, we don't have, they are not insulated from the shenanigans of some Nigerians? Like, there was a time I covered the election in Mali one other year like that, and I was asking the question that, are you saying that the Electoral Commission is biased? They said, no, that's not what we would have said. The both sides of the president, the opposition and the president, they said they have not made that allegation. And apparently, after the interview, I called them, they said, no, they don't talk against such institutions here. But when PDP, judgment is in favor of PDP, it's a victory for democracy. When judgment is against APC tomorrow, you find that democracy is in danger. So it depends on the side of divide you belong to.
Well, there's no doubt that the Bayelsa case was a very unique one in many ways, because from the vote count, the APC won the November election. And just 24 hours before the swearing in, we even heard that the APC governor was already practicing, rehearsing, you know, in preparation for the takeover of the state. then suddenly this judgment came. So for those who voted, who had put their hope in APC, it was a catastrophe that hope has been dashed. But then, instead of the APC writing to INEC, I think it is wrong. You cannot order INEC to organize another election. And I don't think it's also good for our democracy for the highest court in the land to give judgment and keep on reversing itself. Democracy is not about
people asking him to reverse.
Yes, you know. So you see, the people in the Supreme Court are not angels; they are human beings. But once they give that judgment, it cannot satisfy all the parties. It can only satisfy one party. So, in order for us to continue to nurture democracy, irrespective of the bitterness, how bitter the plea is, we have to swallow it. Yes. I feel the pain of those who voted for Leon and all that. But you see, we must also admit that there were fundamental errors on the part of the APC. How did this fellow manage to emerge as the deputy governor of the candidate? Was there no screening? Was the SS not involved in the screening? You know, and he had been participating in politics for several years. How come that he was able to scale these hurdles?
Were questions not asked?
Was questions not asked? Even within the APC itself, the committee that screened their candidate, does it mean that they didn't do their job very well?
Decided over that committee.
So I think it's a lesson for political parties that you have to ensure that credible people emerge as your candidates. It's also a lesson for individuals that if you have done things bad in the past, you'll be haunted at one time or the other in history. Now to your question, why people question the legitimacy of, Babajide has said it. If you look at the Supreme Court maybe some 30 years ago, they were like gods. But we have seen so many things that the way people, even judges, even emerge, they were promoted. We are talking about the question of merit, the question of credibility. So the judiciary cannot be isolated. Yes. And that is why today people keep on questioning, institutions. And that's why people continue to delegitimize our, institution, because they have proved themselves not to actually be consistent, with the expectation of the people. And I think this thing will continue unless the judiciary itself also purge itself of corrupt elements.
Corrupt and incompetent.
So, don't you think this is like a bad precedent? Now, after the ruling of any Supreme Court case, you can always write to them, can always file an appeal that please come and review your judgments.
Well, I don't know. The average politician is extremely optimistic. The Nigerian politician is extremely optimistic. Even a person that cannot win an election, the moment he enters the race, they start calling him Your Excellency, Your Excellency, Honorable Sir. They know that he can't win. No. They know that in his little homestead, he cannot win an election. But they'll be hailing, Your Excellency, Sir. Just one insignificant fellow, let him attempt to contest for governor. You see the people around him start calling him Your Excellency. So, they are incurable optimists. I don't know, as a historian, I've not seen where the Supreme Court changed the main kernel of its decision. If, for example, the Supreme Court misspelled the name of a lawyer, if the Supreme Court, in giving judgment, cited the wrong case to validate its position, they can be approached to say, no, the case that you wanted to cite was this, this, and that, and they will change that.
That could be amended.
Yes, they could change that because it is a court of record, and the judgment of the Supreme Court is a piece of record.
Reference points.
Yes, so they will go back and make amendments to that judgment. Those are the instances that I can remember. The Supreme Court is not just a court of law, but a court of policy. And it has powers. It is within its jurisdiction to make pronouncement, consequential orders. There's nothing wrong with our laws. It is the way our courts make those consequential orders, those consequential pronouncements that remain the problem. Look at when the Supreme Court decided that Amechi should be sworn in. They knew that Amechi never contested an election. Nobody voted for him. But they said no.
It's the political party.
Because they wanted to teach a lesson that impunity does not pay. They then say, okay, but this should not be
The reference point.
cited as a precedent. It happened even in the case of Awolowo and Shagari in 1979, the 12 to 3rd matter.
Yes.
Nobody can cite it as a precedent because it's seen as an error. So the law, the Constitution does not say that you cannot make a policy error. So when that error is made, there's nothing anybody can do about it. When that error is made, because they are human beings, they are bound to make errors. And there have been mistakes made, either at the level of appeal court or the Supreme Court. There have been mistakes in the past.
Several judgments.
Yes. People, for me now, I believe, for example, that Awolowo never planned a coup. Everything that I've read, from being a little boy, everything I read pointed to the fact that Awolowo never planned a coup. I'm yet to see anyone with strong evidence that Awolowo planned a coup. But he was jailed, all the same. Yes. Well, he came out of jail and was made finance minister.
And go on.
And he ran the economy during the war. So mistakes are made by people in this final court. But to imagine that they will change the decision that they have made, I've never seen that happen. If it happens on Tuesday, it will be a first. It will be a first. That, especially when it is the main kernel of his decision.
In less than 1 month, 7 justices of the Supreme Court gave a judgment, and after they will now reverse.
It will not. No, the main kernel.
Yes,
is the largely, to some people, largely insignificant things that they can change. Like you misspell the name of a lawyer. Listen, the lawyer has a right to say no, and they will go back and change it.
Like
so
some people are already waiting now that by tomorrow the Supreme Court can bring back Emeka Ihedioha as the governor of Imo State.
After 60 days had expired, between the time when the Court of Appeal gave the judgment, that's not what the law says. The law says that after 60 days, you cannot get the final court to review that matter. I believe that at the end of the day, they will say that they do not have jurisdiction because even the law does not permit the Supreme Court to review a matter after 60 days. It's there, Section 285. So it's easy to predict what will happen in respect of Ihedioha's matter. What they should have done when Hope Uzodinma was taking those results all over the place, that look, they denied me this thing. What did they do at the level of the trial court to puncture the evidence?
Yes. Did INEC produce a superior copy? To
what did they do? Let's even leave INEC alone. We are talking about the Ihedioha group. What did their lawyers do to convince the court that this result that this man said should be added is not valid, is fake? What did they do? All the things they are doing now, the tabulations they are doing and all of these things, should have been done at the level of the trial court. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is the way I see it. It should have been done at that level. And if you look at talking about that of APC, go and read what Sage has said. Yes, Sage said the judgment was bad. But he went on to say, look, that the party did not do due diligence. Abi? Yeah. He said it. Yeah. This is the truth that a lot of people don't want us to say. Look, but we talk about what happened in Kogi. Kogi, the screening was thorough. Because that former chief of naval staff had 1959 on a document and 1960 on another one. As his date of birth, he was screened out. That's just one mistake that some people could overlook. But they knew that, if we do this thing, if we allow this thing to go,
To work against us in
the
the
opponent
future.
may capitalize on, and they screened him down.
Wale, what do you make of Adams Oshomole's utterances, and then especially immediately after that, the Bayelsa, INEC spoke on Bayelsa, and he said there won't be inauguration tomorrow.
I hope he was misquoted, because that gave a very wrong impression that there was a superior political party higher than the Supreme Court, and I think that is not good for our democracy. Probably he made that statement out of frustration, because there was no way anybody could have prevented that swearing in. The only person that could have done that was that Supreme Court, and they are giving the order, irrespective of the, of the shortcomings. So I think that statement was unnecessary. If it was born out of anger, or probably was misquoted, because the APC, even though it's the ruling party, cannot be a substitute to the Supreme Court of the land.
Okay, I have my first caller on the line. Richard is calling from Kaduna State. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening, Richard.
My contribution to this particular matter is that it is quite unfortunate that we have lost confidence in the judiciary of this country. The judgment that was given in favor of
we lost him. As we were saying.
Yeah, so I think the APC chairman probably could have asked one of his aides to make that statement, but coming from the party chairman himself, it wasn't a good thing. We know that how painful that could be, but they should not forget that that's not the first case. That they have also won in other instances. That was also painful to other people.
Yes.
I know that winning Bayelsa was a strategic inroad into the south. But then it doesn't come all the time, that every time you have to win. So you must realize that once you lose this election, the next thing is to wait for the next 4 years, and 4 years will soon come. So I think that statement was unnecessary. We should still show some respect for Supreme Court. If we don't show that respect, then we'll be leading the country to anarchy.
But some even politicians even stage a walk. They went to United Nations Embassy, United States, to report our Supreme Court. So, like PDP, the national chairman, Mr. Peter Obi, we saw them staging walks all over after the judgment of the Supreme Court.
This is how politicians have always behaved in our country. In the past, politicians will be the ones, once they lose an election, they will go and invite the military back to take power. They've done that. They would invite the military back with all kinds of inflammatory comments and all that. Thank God, this is not the age and time when you can actually, by your actions, invite the military back. But you see, no matter how painful, many people felt that, look, the deputy governorship candidate was disqualified without over an allegation that was not really proved. Some are saying, oh, the schools did not come out to say that they did not award those certificates and all that. But it is the Supreme Court. It is the Supreme Court. Once they take a decision, no matter how bad it is,
swallow the bitter pill.
I don't know, because the moment they start reviewing or changing their own decisions, then it is no longer Supreme Court.
I have another caller from Lagos. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good evening. You have been holding me for some time now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, good evening to you, Babajide.
Good evening.
You are always on point, and good evening to the other guests in the studio.
Thank you.
And I believe you deserve more awards this year. On the issues on ground, I just want to say one thing, Babajide. The simple truth is this. The Supreme Court is simply putting these parties in their place. Because the impunity going on in those political parties is just too much.
All right.
The Supreme Court is just putting them in their place. And the PDP who also went to protest to wherever they went to, in the embassy, they would have protested to the lawyers. who did not do their job.
Don't do their
So
job.
what the Supreme Court is doing is putting these individuals in their place. How on earth that if you remember Bajire, this man, after his senatorial election,
Yes.
he was challenged about this same certificate.
Yes, yes.
But
That's
the
true.
PDP could not get conviction or anything against him because it was not a pre-election issue then, it was an election issue. Then the same man again was yielded with impunity by the same party. They just got what they deserve. I think this should be a lesson to them.
The lesson
I hope
for
they
the
learn.
political
I hope they
parties.
learn.
I hope they will learn.
We've not been able to banish impunity. The courts have punished impunity so many times, but it's equal for our politicians to change. My concern is that some people within our parties appear bigger than everyone else. If they choose a candidate, you can't screen that candidate out. So even if that candidate has baggage, you cannot touch that candidate because the person who brought him is very big in the party. And that is, you have a situation in which someone will say, no, as long as I'm in this party, you cannot be anything in the party. And that is why you find a situation, look at what happened in Rivers. As we speak, it has not been resolved. The crisis in Rivers, APC has not been resolved. We are hoping that one day they will be able to bring them together. That is the greatest task that Oshiomhole has now. Reunite the party, build cohesion, let the party be strong as one party, the way it was when they just started. A lot of the political statements that you make are not necessary. That's not what you need at this time. Unite the party, make the party strong, position it to win future elections. That's the best that it can do now.
While not forgetting that the Minister of Petroleum actually promised Mr. President, he apologized and promised Mr. President that this loss is temporary.
Yeah, if he's talking about winning election the next 4 years again,
It's still temporary.
It is temporary.
It's still temporary.
Not that something
Not
can be
permanent.
done.
Yeah.
What he's saying, temporary is the opposite of permanent.
Okay.
APC can still take over that state.
Yeah.
There are still many of them who say, look, this struggle, we lost this struggle, but we'll be back. That taking over Bayelsa is a task that will be done, not must be done, will be done. And that their lifetime it will happen. So maybe that's what Silva is saying. Time is a gentleman, but that time will come.
All right, still to come. Gallant Nigerian soldiers from the 195 Battalion Charlie Company foiled Boko Haram's plan to enter Maiduguri through Muna general area. We'll be right back after this time out. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're right on time. This is your multi-award winning program, Journalist Hangout, and we're reaching you from Television Continental here in Lagos, Nigeria, as the fight against insurgency in Nigeria's northeast persists. Gallant soldiers from 195 Battalion Charlie Company on Sunday night fought attempt by Boko Haram fighters to enter Maiduguri through Muna general area in Borno State. Now, according to reports, the exchange of fire lasted for more than 1 hour as the soldiers stopped the insurgents from invading the city. This struggle for cities within Maiduguri or outside Maiduguri, some kilometers after Maiduguri, is now becoming a regular thing now. Places not far from Maiduguri,
Yes,
by Boko Haram,
it's
they've
like
intensified their attacks.
the truth is the communities outside of Maiduguri are not safe. So they can easily launch attacks from those communities, whether it is Konduga or Dalori, somewhere after Dalori. All of those places are not safe. Or even if it's the road that leads to Mafa that you are talking about, they are not safe. As we have seen now, Maiduguri, Damaturu, Jakana, Auno, they are not safe. So it's like a city that is kind of surrounded by fighters just waiting for that opportunity, the day that they'll be able to breach that security cordon, because Maiduguri, as I always say, is the most defended city in Nigeria. So to enter Maiduguri, you have to be really, really ready. So, and every time that they've tried, to the glory of God, our soldiers have always repelled them. From Konduga, they've tried. Konduga is the most attacked Nigerian Borno city by Boko Haram. because it is a straight road. The road is good, you know. And once you can enter, once they can breach the security at Konduga, they will easily enter Maiduguri. So our soldiers have always kept them in check. There was a day that our soldiers killed 64 Boko Haram fighters in Konduga alone. But they will still come. They keep coming at you. Communities like Jidari, Polo, all those communities just on the outskirts of the city, they are not safe. This is what we are seeing. And on the same day that they tried to enter Maiduguri through Muna, because Muna is one of the entry points into the city, and we have a checkpoint there. On the day that they tried to enter, they were also attacking Babangida village in Tarmua, local government of Yobe State. Babangida village has been attacked 4 times in 3 months.
4 times?
No, 3 times in 4 months. So the point is, why do they keep going there? Because from that area, you can get to Yunusari, from Yunusari to Gaidam, you are in Niger Republic. I've said before that Boko Haram cells are active in Niger Republic. So, because they are active there and the government over there, more or less, I see that government as a failed regime. They've not been able to help us stop these guys from hibernating on their soil.
In Niger?
And, yes, Niger Republic, and coming into Niger Republic, coming into Nigeria through Gaidam and Yobe State. So, that's why they keep going to that Babangida town to attack it. So, but we just have to encourage the soldiers to be vigilant, and I think that the Chief of Army Staff deserves to praise the young men who stopped Boko Haram from coming to...
That's 195 Battalion,
yes,
Charlie Company.
Yes, Charlie Company.
Okay.
They deserve praise. In anger, the boys went to their base and set ablaze the camp. So by the time those soldiers, you can see what our soldiers are going through. By the time they finish fighting Boko Haram, at this point, they have nowhere to lay their heads. Because all their tents were set ablaze by Boko Haram. You know? So this is a massive sacrifice. You stop them from entering Maiduguri, and then they went to your camp to go and set everywhere ablaze. So,
what do you make of these persistent attacks?
Well, it gives a lot of impression about the way Boko Haram operates. They are our own people. They can be coming, you may assume that they are farmers, coming to attack soldiers. You may assume they are traders, because they don't fight conventional warfare. They attacked the soldiers around 7:30. And probably the soldiers assumed they were just ordinary townsmen. So it's a very difficult battle to fight when you are fighting locals who are using guerrilla tactics. I think Maiduguri is a very strategic town for us, and also very strategic to the Boko Haram people, and also Damaturu in Yobe, because these 2 areas were where they actually started their campaign. So taking over Maiduguri from them is a kind of defeat, both militarily, psychologically, and culturally. So it's not surprised. We are not surprised that each time they want to make an attempt to take over Maiduguri. I think these are some of the success stories, inspiring stories that we need to continue to celebrate. And like Babajide has said, it's not just about people putting up heroic actions. It's also very important to show them that we welcome their heroic activities. Such soldiers should be either promoted, should be given medals, so to serve as a kind of inspiration to other people, so that other soldiers will begin to also see that as something that is inspiring to them. But I also think it shows that Boko Haram is yet to be totally defeated. They are becoming more desperate. Sometimes when a guerrilla movement is at wit's end, when it's suffering continuous losses, that is when it becomes more desperate. But I think we need to prove to the world that we have the capacity to put an end to this insurgent. But I think we still have a lot of work to do in terms of gathering intelligence. I actually think that is the engine room of our ability and capacity to be able to deal with them. Because they mix with the local populace. It's very difficult to know them. They don't wear uniforms. So the only way you can be ahead of them is to have superior intelligence so that you can locate where the assets are, and then you'll be able to nip in the bud any plan that they have before they carry out that kind of action.
How come this these people, anytime they are meeting in the Northeast, as anytime they are all over holding their meeting in their strongholds and everything, is there no how they can be detected through any kind of radar or through our Air Force?
No, they detect them. Well, you see sometimes too, the weather favors Boko Haram. I was in Borno State when Boko Haram overran Baga. Although we deceived ourselves that it didn't happen. What happened? The Air Force, I think on the second day, the Air Force tried to launch a big campaign to take back the community. But the weather was bad. At this time of the year, you know that even going to Abuja from here is a big problem. So the Air Force too sometimes, because of bad weather at this time, during this Harmattan, the haze is too much. If it is this bad in Lagos, just ask yourself, how will it? Yes. So people have asked, how come those attacks, the Air Force did not respond? There are times when they don't even get the intel on time to respond. Because these boys too, their attacks are usually very fast. They've done what they want to do and they run away. So maybe before they get to know, they've already committed, they've already killed people and gone away. Then the weather, this is not a good time for the Air Force, this time of the year, you know. When it is raining, it's a lot better. But at the peak of the Harmattan, they always complain. They always complain that
I have Emmanuel calling from. Oh, I think we lost Emmanuel. Yes, we lost Emmanuel. So on the final note now on this topic, and we look at the new acquisition of the federal government. We just acquired some aircraft, and efforts of people who have been calling for change of strategy, change of the top military brass. What do you make of it?
Well, changing the defense chiefs after more than 4 years, going to 5 years now, it's not out of place. But it does not mean that changing them will automatically lead to greater achievements.
Yes.
It's not giving.
Yes.
It's not giving. So we need to be very, very careful. You know, we need to understand what is actually going on, you know, before we can just be, calling for change just for the sake of it. Because what we need to defeat Boko Haram goes beyond changing of those, service chiefs. You know, it involves political will. It involves defining economic roadmap. It involves, weaponry, intelligence gathering, and then cooperation by bilateral relations, multilateral relations, especially in terms of our collaboration with neighboring countries like Chad, Cameroon, Mali, and Niger.
Okay, I have this caller from Port Harcourt. Kenneth from Port Harcourt.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry, my name is Kenny. And to your guest, and to my highly respected man, Deogajide. Good evening, sir.
I agree to Kennedy.
Look, there is this question I want to ask. When this repelling was being carried out by our ground forces, the Nigerian soldier, wasn't there a way for them to have contacted the Nigerian Air Force as well? Or are the Nigerian Air Force and the Nigerian soldier, are they not working in synergy? Are they not working together? In a situation like this, when our soldiers are coming on the front, on the ground, I would have thought that the Air Force too would be on the air. So that wherever these guys are running into, they are getting air surveillance, and then they are being bombarded at the same time. So the question I'm asking is, when these soldiers were carrying out this repelling attack on this insurgency in Maiduguri, where was Nigerian Air Force?
Okay, thank you, Kennedy.
I spoke briefly about that. Sometimes, because of the weather, this is the worst time for the Air Force to operate. They hardly fly at this time because the weather is terrible, so much haze and all that. So many times they won't be able to respond to
Your distress call.
Yes.
All right, finally, reprisal attacks or revenge killings have been fingered as one of the factors fueling endless violence in Nigeria. The killing of 30 people in 2 villages in Basara, local government area of Katsina State, by bandits is another instance. But President Muhammadu Buhari and the state governor Aminu Bello Masari have cautioned against reprisal attacks following the killings. President Buhari, who condemned the attacks, said the killings in the name of revenge is unacceptable. Babajide, even in the president's states, home states, over 30 people were killed. And when you are looking at, the state of insecurity, I expected that. I don't expect that president should prioritize one state over the other. But this is it's not like an insult.
No, but there was a greater insult when his in-law was kidnapped in Daura, the village head of Daura, is the president's in-law. He was kidnapped just after I finished prayers, evening prayers. They came, and if you can go, and the place is not really far from the president's house. So if you can go to take away the president's in-law, what are we talking about again? What more evidence do we need to show that these guys have taken on the Nigerian state and we must deal with them decisively? I've heard people say, oh, if the Air Force wants to bomb, they will say, oh, they must not bomb civilians because there are usually hostages with Boko Haram, this and that. I mean, it's bullshit. The truth is, the Air Force does not go to find out from Boko Haram whether they are holding hostages. If they see signs that Boko Haram men are fighting, they drop bombs on them. They waste them. And that's the way it's been happening. If they see bandits operating somewhere or having a meeting, they go there to drop it on their camp. They don't go to investigate whether they are holding some hostages. Even the Chibok girls, you remember when the Chibok girls were released? There was some of them already with severed limbs and all that. Some either step on bombs or when during air raid. In fact, Shekau himself said that some of the girls died during an air raid. So this is the thing. It will happen. It's called collateral damage. If we want to say, oh, let Amnesty International not talk, oh, then we will not bomb enclaves of people, this undesirable element. Are we going to win the war? How are we going to win the war? But this we said, okay, that we support the idea of making peace. We ban this in Katsina. Well, what we are seeing now is evidence that peace is fragile. Because there is no, yes, from what the governor said, I think they killed 2 Fulani strangers on their soil. Then, as they always do, they don't forgive. They went and then mobilized and slaughtered the people. No, it's not enough to slaughter people in this manner. It's not enough.
Those might have been foreigners, have
they are not used to them. They have never seen them. And people, this Basari is one of the most attacked local governments. I went there that time to even interview people. So when you see people who over the years had always killed you, who look like those who had always killed you, you are bound to be worried that what's this person doing? What's he looking for? So I think they resorted to jungle justice. And these people don't forgive. They came back and then slaughtered the people. It's the worst attack in 7 months.
While it was Mr. President talking about, reprisal, because a lot of people, they've been trying to twist what Mr. President actually said. I don't get that drift.
I think he's trying to caution against revenge killings. He's making a general statement that if people are attacked, instead of taking the law into their hands, they should take refuge under the law. It's what you expect any president to say, which is normal. But beyond the rhetorics, we also need to understand the contradictions, that increasingly Nigerians are losing interest in the justice system. They are losing interest in the non-partisan posture of the state itself.
Even the law enforcement.
The security of institutions. Nigerians are losing confidence in them. And that's why you see when people catch criminals, they put, tire on them. Because people want instant justice. Even the judicial system is too slow and corrupt. Look at the case of Evans. We've been on for almost 3, 4, 5 years. That will inspire a lot of kidnappers, a lot of people to take into kidnapping. But after stealing people, killing people, you can't even get justice after almost 4, 5 years. So it's a very bad thing for people to take into justice. But we must take a look at, a kind of surgical analysis of why people take that decision. So we must be able, our judicial system, our security system must be able to give hope to the people. If you don't give hope to the people, we'll continue to see this kind of revenge killings.
Now, those guys, after they said 3 died or 2, and they came back, maybe they'll come back to a multitude and kill people. Now, is it that we don't have people that's in charge of our border security?
No, the problem really is that those villages are largely inaccessible by road. If you go to those villages, you find that the roads are terrible. So even when you raise alarm, before the law enforcement gets to the scene, they will have finished the operation. So this is because the operations too are usually fast. They came just for the way they didn't come to steal, so just to kill. So they won't spend too long, and they are fighting against people who are defenseless. We just open fire on them, set their houses ablaze, and that's it. And likely the people they kill are the elderly who could not run. So, but it shows that the Katsina State Governor, Aminu Bello Masari, and the Secretary to the Government of the State, Dr. Mustafa Inouye, they still have a lot of work to do. We don't want to be hearing the stories of our people being killed in Katsina and all that. We don't want to hear those stories. So they need to work harder. I know that the governor has visited bandits,
trying to
negotiate. He visited Buhari Ndaji, he visited Dogo Gide, who killed Buhari Ndaji. So this has to continue, because you signed to protect lives and property. So we want to see you put an end to these killings. And the president knows that he has his work cut out. At this stage, he needs to send in
security should be the priority right now.
It's an embarrassment to be hearing that these killings are taking place in the home state of the president. So the nonsense has to stop. They can't be killing our people like fowls like this. It has to stop. It has to stop.
I want to thank you, Wale Adeoye.
Yeah.
Thank you for your contribution today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And BKO is a new week.
Yes.
We hope to do it for the rest of this week.
Thank God.
All right, and that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. And watch journalists hang out on our platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Uzwaku. See you tomorrow, and God bless Nigeria.